judge, what's the bigger surprise? Bristol's sellout streak in jeopardy, or Mark Martin on a top 35 bubble? After a week break from the track, NASCAR is back, and so are we. NASCAR Now starts right now.
Matt Kenseth, only the fourth driver in NASCAR history to win the Daytona 500 and the next race.
The first win of 2009 for Kyle Busch.
I'd say this will be quite a celebration in Sin City tonight.
The drag race to the checkered flag will be won by Kurt Busch in the Miller Lite Dodge.
I can't even back out the driveway, so
I got to admire that.
Welcome to the Roundtable edition inside the Home Depot garage. I'm Nicole Mansky with my panel of experts. We'll start ladies first. Our NASCAR Now reporter Angelique Shingalis from USA Today. We have Nate Ryan, and from the Boston Globe we have Michael Vega. Now, before we get a chance to look ahead to Bristol, race 5 so far of this season, let's take a look back at some of the key moments so far.
And away. Here, 5-4 right here. Whoa, 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 whoa. Go, keep going. Just keep going.
Joey Loano slamming the inside retaining wall. He made contact with Greg Biffle. A long slide and head-on into the inside safer barrier. A tough lick for Joey Loano.
Brian Vickers is collecting the front half of the field. Kyle Busch is involved. Robbie Gordon around. Jamie McMurray is there. Scott Speed is involved. Everybody's scattering to avoid. Denny Hamlin gets a piece. Kurt Busch is there as everybody tries to take evasive maneuvers, starting with contact with Brian Vickers and Dale Earnhardt Jr.
The cars have been under the red flag for the last 11 minutes and 52 seconds, and now we get word that NASCAR is going to call the race here at lap 152. As a result of the rain, it'll end prematurely, but I'm sure Matt Kenseth is going to be happy to hear the news. He was out front, and he will be the man who goes home with the trophy. He wins the Daytona 500.
hang on, folks. This is going to hurt.
As the 16 came in and whipped to a stop, ran over the air hose. Checkered flag, third California win for Kenseth and Roush Fenway Racing at 4.
Never mind, he just blew up. Now we're starting to see.
Yeah, he just blew up.
I think he may be the caution.
He is now.
Trouble off turn 2. Jamie McMurray, I'll tell you, what an amazing save. He had the car up against the wall and completely sideways.
You can see right there the crew member saying, look, we're done.
Now watch what the 48 does. He comes around the 77. Hello. Yikes.
Jeff Gordon cannot get back up to speed.
He blew a tire.
He's the reason for the caution.
I think he slid the tire. Yeah. There he goes. He's sticking that nose down there. Oh, and he got him up the hill.
Got it.
Yeah, baby.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
Jimmy Johnson, who was racing hard from back about 8th position, lost it, turned it up into the wall, and then looks like Sam Hornish spun right behind him.
He qualified on the pole. He had to start the race in the back. And Wild Thing is going to win again.
I'm going to tell you what, NASCAR is not going to be happy with that crew member at all. He was halfway across the infield grass.
Just the back end sheet metal, but it's pretty bad. The deck lip's flopping. So we'll bring it to us. We'll see what we can do here.
Whoa, we got a car in the wall.
Hard, Scott Speed.
Caution. More cars. Got turned around, hit the wall hard to 16.
And in his 296 starts, it's the most laps he's ever led in one day. Kurt Busch, Roger Penske win in Atlanta.
Speaking of that blue deuce, the 234 laps that Kurt Busch led in Atlanta, that's almost as many as the entire Penske organization led in 2008. At Las Vegas, Jeff Gordon became the 7th Cup driver to lead 20,000 career laps. And at California, Kevin Harvick, we saw it just happen right now, saw his streak of 81 straight races without a DNF come to a close. And I think it's pretty fair to say that there have been a few surprises so far this season. So we will start with the good. We will get to the bad in a second. But Nate, we'll start with you. Who has surprised you the most this season?
Kurt Busch. And there's two surprises here, Nicole. One is the performance of the Dodge engine, which was just so moribund last year, that so deficient on power, they didn't even put a car in the chase and became the first manufacturer to miss out on the chase of the big three. This year, that motor clearly is up to speed. Kurt showed that at Atlanta. He was also very strong in California. And the second part of why it's so surprising that he's doing so well is the resurgence of the love affair between him and team owner Roger Penske. If you were listening to Kurt's team radio last season, you wouldn't have thought he was going to stay at Team Penske very long. There were times in which he was very upset, called out his crew for mistakes. And Team Penske is a very professional organization. Some might even say politically correct organization, where if drivers don't toe the company line, they're often shown the door. And somehow they were able to mend fences between Kurt Busch and the team, and now it's looking like he's going to make the chase this year and be a championship contender.
Michael, what do you think?
Well, right off the box, right out of the box, you got to say Matt Kenseth was a surprise, because he came to Daytona after going winless in 2008, and no one really knew what he was going to do this year. Kind of flew underneath the radar a little bit, and then he arrives, and what does he do? He wins the race. Granted, it was a rain-shortened affair, but he put himself in position. He avoided the big one, barely gets through there, and what does he do next race? He wins that one too. Complete surprise, I think. He's put himself in championship contention, I think, right off the bat.
Nicole, I'd say borderline surprise and feel-good story is David Gilliland. I mean, he's with the team, TRG Motorsports, upstart team. They've qualified for the last 3 races after not making the Daytona 500. I like David Gilliland. I think he's shown a lot of heart. It was a difficult break from Yates Racing, and he's moved on and done surprisingly well.
You can't talk the good without talking the bad side of things. There are a few surprisingly bad starts to this season. We'll start with you, Angelique. Who is your surprise on that side of the coin?
Well, I don't think anyone would disagree with me. In fact, you will not disagree with me. I think it's got to be Mark Martin. I mean, he's come out of semi-retirement and joined the Hendrick Motorsports team. Thought he would have the best equipment, and he may. I'm not saying he doesn't, but he has not had the performances. He's really struggled these first 4 races, and going into Bristol will be absolutely key for him.
Do you disagree with her?
No, not at all. And I think I may even trump you on that one. And it comes from the same Hendrick Motorsports team as Junior. I mean, you look at the first 4 races of the season, he's underachieved, and I don't think he's driving to the capability that people expect him to. He has such a large contingent of fans that they have to be a little bit disappointed with the way he's performing right now. And I think that the pit issues he had at Daytona, the way he tried to explain them away, and then how he kind of acted out in frustration, I don't know, did that turn people away from him? And, we've been seeing, in cartoon strips, Tank McNamara, he gets killed every week. He was getting killed for a solid week, and I'm wondering if there's a little bit of, if his reputation hasn't been burnished, but a bit tarnished.
I think Junior's got a lot to answer for so far this season, but I think he's cognizant of that fact. And I think that this off week came exactly the right time for that team. I think they need to regroup, and there needs to be an attitude shift. There's been a lot of discussion about, whether or not Tony Eury Jr. is the right crew chief for Dale Earnhardt Jr. I don't know if there is another guy in the garage who can speak to Junior the way that Tony Eury Jr. can, because they're cousins.
Right.
But I think that if the performance continues, to me, this is residual after effects from the slump that Junior went into in last year's chase. And if he doesn't turn around at some point this season, I think you're going to see some major personnel changes.
He was virtually a non-factor in the chase, and right now on that team, he really hasn't factored much. I mean, you think about the other guys on that team, Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, they're both champions. And the thing is that, you look at them, and they really set a high standard. And right now, he's just a wingman to those guys. So, he's got a long ways to go. And I think he's pushing hard. And that's the thing that his fans love about him. He always pushes hard. He always races hard. And I think that, if he continues to do that and fights his way through this, maybe he'll turn things around here.
But Junior's not your surprise.
Junior's not my surprise. My disappointment, I guess I should say, would be Joey Logano, who I think you have to put an asterisk with this disappointment, because I don't think anybody expected that Joey Logano was going to make the chase in his first season, the number 20 Joe Gibbs car, replacing Tony Stewart. I think everybody had him pegged as a 15th to 20th place driver, but here we are heading into Bristol, and he's outside the top 30 in points. I think it's kind of to be expected in a sense. Before the season started, crew chief Greg Zipadelli said that the biggest issue for Joey Logano was going to be whether he could communicate to the crew what the car was doing and how to improve it, and whether the crew could take that information and apply it to the car and make the car better. So I don't think that his results are reflective of his talent. I think they're just reflective of the fact that he doesn't have a lot of experience. The no testing rule has really hurt him this year, and he only gets an hour or two in that car every weekend to really work on race setup, and I think that's hurting him.
The no test.
No, I was going to say, you really think it's fair to call him a disappointment, though, after everything you stated? I mean, you haven't won your Pulitzer yet, and you're 22, I think, Nate. But I think we got to give this guy some room. I mean, he's young, he's exceptionally talented, he's with a terrific crew chief. I think it would be really terrible. It would be unreasonable to expect him to be a huge star immediately this season. I think we're looking at 2-3 years down the road.
I agree. I don't mean to dogpile on you, Nate, but here I go.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Do you want me to move out of the way?
Yeah, you better move out of the way. It's a big splash.
I expected to lock horns with you, Mike.
Well, but the thing is this, that, we got to remember, as Angelique said, he's just 19, prepubescent. He's new to this thing, but, he looks like it to me. You walk up to the guy and you wonder, how can this guy be doing what he's doing right now? We got to all marvel at his talent too. But I understand that he's going to be going through a learning process, and the learning curve is going to be huge for him this year. And I think that 4 races into the season, yeah, they haven't been great. The Daytona debut wasn't smashing at all, or maybe it was,
smashing,
or maybe
actually.
it was.
I haven't actually heard his voice squeak in a while, but he will turn 19 in May.
Can I add 2 things?
Yes.
Okay, one, I'm 36 as of 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Happy birthday then.
The second thing is, he's a disappointment, I think, but I'm not saying that he's not going to rebound.
Yes, I understand. You're not writing him off.
From a results standpoint, I don't think you can.
You called him a disappointment, Nate. Stick to it.
From a results standpoint, you can't look at that car, which has won 2 championships, and say if it's not in the top 30, that's not a disappointment. I still think he's going to finish top 20 in points by the end of the season.
Clearly, we have a few disagreeing opinions up here, which leads us really to our poll question. ESPN.com wants to know, of the following drivers not currently in the top 12, who is most likely to make the chase? Jeff Burton, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Mark Martin, or David Reagan? Now log on to ESPN.com, go to the NASCAR page, and weigh in. Later on, the results are coming up, and I have a feeling we will find your answer to Mike's question. Does Junior Nation still care? Let's go under the hood. A Saturday night special at Bristol Motor Speedway, where the legends literally will take to the track. Does NASCAR need a senior tour? After 4 races, who's scratching their heads more, Goodyear or the bulk of NASCAR's engine builders? Why are the problems so far? And of course, then it is report card time. Who scores an A and who is failing miserably? It's all ahead on NASCAR Now.
NASCAR Now, brought to you by Applebee's. It's a whole new neighborhood.
9 different teams are in the top 12. Roush Fenway has the most with 3. That, of course, Edwards, Kenseth, and Biffle. Then RCR with both Kevin Harvick and Clint Boyer. And Dodge. There are 2 Dodges in the top 12. Penske Racing and Richard Petty Motorsports. Yes, we know it's early, but a feat nonetheless, considering when the chase began 1 year ago, there were no Dodges to be found. Dodge driver Elliott Sadler says what you see right now is a sign of things to come.
I think Dodge is definitely, we're in a little bit better shape than what we were last year. The 2 car has been very, very strong this year, and it has made some big strides. Casey has ran well the last 3 races, coming off a not-so-great finish at Daytona. I feel like they're getting some momentum on their team. So we feel like we're going in the right direction. We have a couple Dodges now in the chase and a few just right on the outside looking in, so definitely making the right strides.
We will grade one of those Dodge teams in just a second, but let's start handing out grades to some of the other teams. Michael, we'll start with Hendrick. What do you think?
Well, Hendrick, I think right now gets a B+, or maybe a B-. Let me go there. Start there because that's what I really started out with. But the reason B- is because, the 2 guys, the new guys, have been acting like, a carburetor restrictor plate on the grading curve for those guys. You look at what Earnhardt and Martin, and I hate to regurgitate what we talked about a little bit, but you take them, or you take the 2 top guys out of the equation, and they're ranked first. Jeff Gordon in the points and Jimmy Johnson 13th. You have a team that has its best driver, its best result, a 10th right now by Dale Jr. at Las Vegas, and that's it. Right now with 3 DNFs between the 2. So if it weren't for them, this might have been a C.
Moving on to Roush Fenway Racing. Nate, what do you think?
A minus. You know, they started out the season by getting that elusive Daytona 500 victory by Matt Kenseth. That was Jack Roush's first victory in NASCAR's crown jewel. They've got all 5 of their drivers in the top 25 in points right now, and I think they could put all 5 of their cars in the chase again, like they did in 2005.
Joe Gibbs Racing.
I'm giving it a generous C+, Nicole. I mean, I think we know what Kyle Busch can do when he's won a race. I think we're all wondering where's Denny Hamlin. He has not produced like I thought he would coming into the season. And as Nate pointed out earlier, I mean, Joey Logano is behind the 8 ball right now. He's young, and I'm going to give him a break, but I think overall this is a C+ team.
We'll let you continue on as we go to Richard Childress Racing. They have 3 drivers in the top 12.
This is a B+.
Sorry, 2.
This is a B+ team, and I think borderline A-. They are really showing a lot of signs of being a truly successful team, and I mean team in the real sense. And I think what Clint Boyer has done with a new team has been remarkable. He's second in the points.
Penske.
B+, and that's, I think, solely on the unexpectedly improved performance of Kurt Busch this season. David Stremme hasn't really been anything special yet in his return to the Cup Series, and I think Sam Hornish Jr., again, it's his second year in NASCAR's Premier Series, and I think if he doesn't start picking up the results soon, people are going to be asking the IndyCar questions pretty much ad nauseum.
Yeah, Kurt is 3rd, David is 26th, and Sam is 31st. There is another team you would like to...
Yeah, you know, I want to throw something out here. I mean, the Tommy Baldwin team, the racing team that, you know, came to Daytona, I think they deserve an E for effort, you know, for what they went through, ramping up their team, getting it, you know, to Daytona within less than a month's time, and racing their way into the race. Scott Riggs doing a fabulous job getting that team on the track, in the field. And the other thing you got to think about, too, is that he did it with virtually no money. And I think that, you know, they deserve a helmet sticker. You know, just like college football final, I'm going to give you guys a helmet sticker. I want you to put it on your helmet, and I want you to come back for another race, because we need to see more teams like this in NASCAR.
And they are on the entry list for Bristol Motor Speedway, so we'll see what they're able to do this weekend. Up next, Roush Yates Engines. They lost 3 engines all of last year. The group lost 3 in 1 race this year, but they are not alone between engines and tires. What are teams to do? We talk next.
Got on the look at a right front tire, just going soft.
Definitely a right front. You feel so helpless. Thing just falls down and takes off straight to the wall, and there's nothing you can do.
I believe he's got a tire down.
Yeah, well, he damaged the car.
Sliding away. Get up above that black. There is no grip whatsoever.
There have been 38 total cautions in the first 4 Cup races of this season. 9 were the result of either a blown tire or a blown engine. Now, Mark Martin, he's suffered both.
Last week was pretty explainable. A different batch of valve springs. I've seen that movie before in my career. I know how that works. But this one is a little bit more puzzling. The oil pump belt's still on it. I can't understand, you know, what happened. This stuff's usually bulletproof, but yeah, I feel bad for Alan and the whole race team, that 5 team. It's a pretty devastating result for us today.
Really, if Mark Martin didn't have bad luck, I don't think he'd have any luck at all. His tire issue at Atlanta. Let's start by talking tires. How do you think the testing ban has impacted Goodyear's efforts to develop a good tire?
I think it's absolutely affected them, Nicole. And I really think when you look at this issue, I think what you have to take from this is perhaps NASCAR and Goodyear need to form a team, a tire testing only team, and bring in a driver like a Todd Bodine, someone like that who knows how to handle these cars and knows what to expect from tire wear, and get this kind of information out for everyone to share. And I think NASCAR should fund this team.
I think they should attack the problem at the races where they've really had struggled at these venues such as Indianapolis. And I think to your point, I think they did try and come together there because they realized they could not have a fiasco like Formula One put on there, and Michelin wound up turning that thing into a farce. You couldn't have that. And I think to their credit, they had to do something. And NASCAR tried to kind of, legislate its way, or maybe, call the correct race there. And it probably wasn't to the liking of the fans, but I mean, that's all you were left with at that point. And a lot of people there were pointing. I mean, I was surprised, Nate. Weren't you surprised how at Indianapolis at the Brickyard that the the drivers really didn't hammer Goodyear that day.
And they haven't this year either.
And I think that, to disagree with Angelique a little bit, I think that was the start of NASCAR drivers realizing that I don't think it's Goodyear's issue so much as it is the car.
Right.
And Jeff Gordon said at Atlanta a couple weeks ago that, you know, there's not a tire supplier in the world that can manufacture a tire that can handle this car, which has, you know, extreme loading on the right side. It's heavier, it's boxier than the old model. It's harder to make a tire for this car than ever before. And Goodyear still has testing sessions, and I think they're bringing better tires to the track this year. But I think the drivers are becoming cognizant of the fact that you can't build a perfect tire for this car, and that's why the criticism has dwindled. And to answer one more point that Angelique made, I don't think. Not to pile on. I don't think that a Goodyear test team is the answer, because you know, you hear the cliche all the time, but NASCAR is allegedly the 43 best drivers in the world, and those guys are of a different caliber than the guys who are outside the series. And I think Goodyear, that's why Goodyear has those test sessions with the Jeff Gordons, with the Mark Martins.
I do want to move on because I do want to talk engines, because that's been another huge issue. And let's go back to testing. Are we seeing these problems with engines again because of the lack of testing?
I think to some extent, yes. I think like teams have pushed the envelope a lot this year without really being able to back that up with real-world data. I think if they were going to test tracks more often that resembled cup tracks, they would have a better sense of how far they were going with the engine horsepower.
Oh, I totally agree with you, believe it or not, Nate. And I would say, if we can draw this out of even more general terms, I mean, in terms of the economy, are we seeing teams that are getting a little itchy because they know that their sponsors' dollars may dry up if they don't show performance on the track? Are they pushing the envelope because of sponsor demands and that kind of pressure?
I think a lot of teams, though, were trying to play a catch-up ball in January for the time lost in December, and maybe to your point, they're feeling pressure because they know they have to perform for sponsors who may or may not be there at the end of the year.
I think one of the more interesting comments actually came from Lee White in Atlanta. He said he likes the mystery that no testing has provided, because we go out week in and week out, and these drivers in these cars, we're not really sure what's going to happen. Yes or no? You agree?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And again, like if they were allowed to do more testing on the track, I think that, you know, that they wouldn't be so reliant on computer simulations. Teams talk about how exact computer simulations are, but again, like the tire testing situation, they can't simulate exactly how a driver drives a race and how a crew chief calls a race at that extreme caliber of competition.
Nothing can actually beat being at the racetrack. Coming up next, the Saturday night special at Bristol. Is it a sign of things to come for NASCAR? We will ask the legendary Harry Gant coming up next. After a 2-week break, the NASCAR Nationwide Series returns to action finally this weekend. Bristol Motor Speedway coverage starts Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern with NASCAR Countdown. Catch all of it on ABC.
Down to the inside. Terry comes up to the inside. It is Cale Yarborough taking first as they get into turn number 3. At the line, it is Cale Yarborough. Cale Yarborough, this must be a thrill.
Handsome Harry Gant is on the entry list this weekend. He scored 16 top 10s in 31 Bristol starts. Should be interesting to see what he can do. How about this for old school? Junior Johnson. He won the 1965 Cup race at Bristol as a driver, and then as an owner, he rattled off 16 wins. The Silver Fox, David Pearson, he's a 5-time Bristol winner and has the 3rd highest win percentage in Cup Series history. He also will be in a car Saturday night. Our own Rusty Wallace, he pretty much owned Bristol Motor Speedway during his racing career. 9 wins, 7 times he finished 2nd, and a 3-time champ Cale Yarborough, who will also get behind the wheel. He too won 9 times at Bristol, including the March 1973 win, where he led all 500 laps. Among the other drivers expected to compete Saturday night, 2 former Nationwide Series champs, Jack Ingram and David Green, 2-time Cup Series champion Terry Labonte, and 2-time Daytona 500 winner Sterling Marlin. One of the legendary drivers on hand this Saturday night for that event is Harry Gant, who just so happens to join us now. Now, you were on hand when this race was announced last month. How did you get involved?
Well, they sent invitations out to some people, about 12 people that had won a race at Bristol Speedway, and I was one of the ones that was in that category. So I think Cale Yarborough, David Pearson, a whole lot of guys. They have about 12, and so I accepted the invitation to go enter this race Saturday.
You just mentioned a whole lot of legends out there driving against each other one more time. Any old scores do you think will be settled on that track Saturday night?
Yeah, it's going to be, a lot of people hadn't, like myself, hadn't raced in a long time. I think Junior Johnson said it'd been 45 years, so it's going to be a little different than normally would have been, if you had a lot of time in the car or something like that. So looking forward to seeing all those people, all those drivers again.
Now you're going to be teamed with a celeb partner. Anyone in particular you would like to have on your team?
Andy Petrie, I think, he used to be my crew chief. He's going to be in the celebrity race, so that'd be a good call.
How do you think the racing has changed at Bristol Motor Speedway from your time in the series to now?
Oh, it's changed a whole lot. They have a lot of engineers doing a lot of the work now, and of course you got to have it. From what I hear and tell, people are saying that if a car is off just a small amount, it's the difference between first and 10th position. So it's changed a whole lot over the years there. Now the engines have changed, but the biggest thing is the technology, I think.
Before we let you go, Harry, the PGA has a sort of senior tour. How would you feel if NASCAR introduced a similar thing for their series?
Well, I think it'd be good if you can get enough people to do it.
Who do you think would be interested in a sort of thing like that?
I don't know. They've been a lot over the years since I quit racing. They've been a lot of things going on to try to do that, and there's nothing really ever panned out to be any good so far. This is about the first thing that we've done that I think is really going to happen. Most of the time it hadn't done anything.
Well, it certainly will be fun to watch Saturday night. Harry, best of luck to you, and thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Okay, it isn't a sort of senior tour. It is a senior tour. I'm sure Rusty Wallace doesn't appreciate being lumped in with the seniors either. We'll have to probably hear from that later. But you were the one that started saying this is like a senior tour. How do you think it would work if NASCAR did something like this?
Well, I think it could work because there's a plethora of drivers who are in their 50s who have recently retired or stepped away from full-time racing, like Terry Labonte, Rusty Wallace, Dale Jarrett, Ricky Rudd, Bill Elliott. There's a lot of names out there right now, but I don't think that you'll see AARP added to the NASCAR acronym anytime soon because there's a lot of liability issues that go along with it. They've tried to start these sort of senior series before, and I think it would be tough to insure and tough to do liability-wise, and it would take a title sponsor. And on top of all that, I don't think racing is analogous to golf, whereas I think as you get older, golf isn't as punishing on an athlete's body, whereas in racing, you're going to feel the G-loads and the heat inside a cockpit.
Yeah, but I don't think you're gonna have these guys, running 400 to 500 miles. You're going to do a format like maybe, the Busch Clash was, where these guys are going for a quick sprint out there. And I think the greater issue here is trying to embrace these guys and not let them go by the wayside. I mean, when we were at Daytona a couple years ago, the 50th anniversary of that race, I looked around the room and there were some guys, like you mentioned that, hey, they could do this. And the guy that jumped out at me was Cale Yarborough. I mean, not only that, I thought he could still, play running back at Clemson the way he looked. And he's a guy that fans would come out in droves to watch. David Pearson, the same thing. Richard Petty would be right there. Wouldn't that be a great thing to have those guys all back on the track, maybe at a specialty event? And what does that do for a track trying to sell tickets?
Do you see her face over here? I think she might disagree with you. She's clamoring.
Mike, maybe a one-time deal, but I don't see this becoming a tour. I've been to senior PGA events. I've been to tennis masters events. It's kind of cute for one time, but then after the second season, the third, it doesn't work. I mean, these guys are relevant. They were relevant during their careers. They're relevant now. Put them on a speaking tour. Have them go out to different tracks and tell their stories about their on-track feats. I don't think we need to see them on the track.
But I think people would love to see them again.
You would. I've seen Harry Gant. I saw him win at Michigan. I don't need to see him on the track now.
Let's move forward to what we're going to see this Sunday. And by looking forward, we need to look back first. Here's what happened at Bristol last year.
Jeff Burton historically has been a gentleman racer. Aggressive? Yes. Burton works up the racetrack. There he goes. White flag is out. Jeff Burton's got the lead.
RCR 1, 2, 3.
Jeff Burton will take the checkered flag.
Boss, you just won Bristol.
Yeah! Woo! Man, it don't get better than that.
Proud of all of you guys. Proud of you.
I'm a long way from being done, I think.
Bristol isn't exactly a predictable racetrack. I wouldn't want to be in Mark Martin's position. He's 35th in owner points. Keep in mind, Bristol, this is it. Drivers will qualify at Martinsville next weekend based on their owner points from this season. So Mark is 35th. He's 9 points ahead of Eric Almirola. Who should be worried the most among these bubble drivers? Angelique?
Mark Martin is one of them. We have not mentioned Ryan Newman. I think he's a guy that we really have to watch and see what happens. And I've been a little surprised. We were talking about surprise and disappointments. Tony Stewart has a very good start, and his teammate not so much.
You wrecked a lot of cars at Daytona, you know, and if you're driving for AIG, you'd probably be getting a fat bonus right now.
What gives, though, when you've got one driver who is in the top 12 and another driver who is so clearly not? What causes that?
I think it's mainly, you know, as Mike said, it's just been misfortune for the 39 team of Ryan Newman. I think he ran well at Daytona up until he had the accidents, and you know, since then it's just been, I think he's had engine failure. It's been one thing after another for that team. So I think the bad part for him and for other guys that we didn't mention, like Scott Speed, Paul Menard, Joey Logano, other guys on the bubble, is that bad for them, but good for NASCAR fans, is that Bristol is not the track you want to go to if you need a good points day and you're having a bad season. This is a place where you can't really stay out of trouble.
I would like your opinion more on Scott Speed. Who is more surprised by Scott Speed's start? Scott himself, who has said this NASCAR stuff isn't really all that difficult, or everyone else? What do you think?
I think he's probably finding out how difficult it really is. You know, I mean, he has a tremendous amount of talent, but, you know, Scott Speed certainly has come on and, you know, done well so far, but, you know, he's had some issues.
The thing is, though, he's not going to admit it.
Right.
He will not admit that this was tougher than he thought.
All right, well, coming up next, from empty seats to fewer sponsors on the cars, two big fears that the big three might go under, at least one of them. We talk the economy. That is coming up next.
Hi, I'm Denny Hamlin, driver of the number 11 FedEx Toyota.
The grandfather clock chimes for Denny Hamlin.
Awesome job. Love you guys.
And you're watching NASCAR Now.
Well, Daytona was good, Vegas too, Fontana and Atlanta, a little bit of a different story there. While both tracks claim to be happy with their crowds, the empty seats, excuse me, were hard to ignore. And this week, Bristol Motor Speedway's 53-race sellout record is in jeopardy. Is this a sign of the times?
Well, Atlanta's had a tough time. You know, this is Hampton, and it's an hour from the city or any resemblance of Atlanta. You'd think that this place would do really well, you know. I love it. I love coming here, and I knew when they didn't rebuild the back grandstands when they tore them down in the tornadoes that this place is struggling and in trouble. And I hate to see it lose a race, which I ain't saying it will. But I love coming here. For the fans that do show up, I enjoy racing in front of them here. And it's a great place, a great racetrack with a lot of history.
Possibly related, the longest running sponsorship in all of American motorsports will come to an end at the end of this season. Budweiser is parting ways with NHRA's Kenny Bernstein Racing, a relationship that began 30 years ago. Anheuser-Busch, the parent company of Budweiser, was purchased by a Belgian beer company last summer. Now, Budweiser's contract with the 9-car and Richard Petty Motorsports runs through 2010. Let's go back to the fans, though. What do you think of the fan turnout at the racetrack thus far this season?
It's what I expected. I actually was a little bit surprised. I mean, look, Nicole, I live in Detroit. I live in Metro. The economy is horrible. I think everyone knows what's going on in Michigan. And I'm surprised to see people in the stands. No one goes to NBA games in Detroit. The hockey games, I mean, this is hockey town. People are not going to the games. I am not surprised at all by the lack of turnout at these races.
The turnout at Atlanta, I didn't think was as poor as was reported. I've been to every race at Atlanta since the fall 2002 race, and the turnout that they had last Sunday was about what they had for the last 7 or 8 races there. And I saw an extremely large walk-up crowd walking into the racetrack that day because of the sunny weather. So I thought they did better than expected. I think the bigger issue is the Kenny Bernstein issue. I think what's been overlooked is that, perhaps because it's hard to quantify, is the impact that the economy is having on track's corporate sales this year. And, you know, there's been stories written about how DuPont has scaled back on its hospitality and the like. And, you know, that's more of an issue for NASCAR than fan turnout being a little bit down. If corporate sponsors start to pull back and the lifeblood of the sport starts disappearing, that's going to endanger the sport more than if less fans come.
The lifeblood of the sport, though, too, is arguably those big 3 manufacturers in Detroit. And there's fears that maybe one or more could go under. How does that impact the sport?
Oh, I mean, it would be devastating, Nicole. And I hate to be the half-empty girl here, but I mean, this would be catastrophic. I mean, we're looking at GM. The situation is not very positive right now. And if we see GM withdraw from this sport, you know, because of the economy, What's left? I mean,
who fills the void? I mean, who fills the void? I mean, would it be, you know, Toyota? Would they have to come up and split the difference with the other manufacturers, because the other domestic manufacturers are hurting as well? You know, Ford really didn't have to go to the government hands on knees as GM and Dodge did, you know. But I'm concerned about what happens to the sport.
Well, speaking of crowds, and this is a little ironic in that, but the Speedway Motorsports Inc. chairman Bruton Smith went on one of his rants in Atlanta this last weekend in an effort to get the season finale at one of his tracks, Atlanta or Vegas, because he said he could sell more tickets. He said, quote, "Why have the last race of the season at some godforsaken area just north of Cuba? They're not doing anything for the sport. Wouldn't it be better off holding the race where you can draw 175,000 people?" That was Bruton Smith. Four-time champ Jeff Gordon, he disagreed.
I love what Bruton brings to the sport. I mean, you know, he always gives you guys some good material to write. I think he always keeps things interesting, and he builds beautiful facilities. There's no doubt about that. But I do think Homestead is the place to wrap down our season. I love that track. It's not in the heart of where our core fans are, but there still are a tremendous amount of fans that love the sport down there, and it's a great racetrack. I mean, to me, the changes that they've made to that track over the years has been a huge improvement for stock car racing, and I think we put on a much better race there, which you know, makes it a great place to wind down the season.
If we're just talking weather, I'd rather have palm trees and 80 than, you know, Atlanta and possibly cold weather and rain. But which track provides the better finale location, Miami or Atlanta?
I think if you look at the track record here, Miami is sold out. Before last season, they had a string, I think, of 4 or 5 sellouts in a row for that season finale. And if you go back to when Atlanta had the season finale earlier, they weren't selling that race out. I think Bruton Smith would prefer to have the season finale at Las Vegas, actually.
Yeah, that's what I think.
But again, I mean, with Bruton Smith, take everything he says with a grain of salt, because often it's more bluster than substance.
So if at the end of the day this comes down to him wanting to get the season finale at Vegas or a second race at Vegas, does Vegas deserve a second race?
Well, I think not only that, though, maybe bringing the championship awards into the banquet to Vegas as well. I think that gives him a huge chip. And hey, look, we're having the race out here. We're finishing up the season. Why not? We got plenty of hotel space. He'll gladly quote you the number of hotel rooms in Las Vegas. But I think that's the other chip that he's looking to get.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Mike. But if we are strictly talking Atlanta or Miami, I think we've got to go with Homestead. I think it's the perfect size facility for the last race of the season, and they have, as Nate said, sold it out, and it's been a decent show, and the weather's perfect, Nicole.
But you can get a great tan in Vegas too.
I agree with Nicole on this one, Mike. Sorry.
James Bond over here.
I'm all in on that one.
Coming up next, 4 races in and already. A few drivers have provided a few memorable moments, not necessarily because of what they've done on the track, but because of what they've said off.
He kind of ruined the whole race. We went from having a lot of cars on one lap, what I felt anyways, to no cars on one lap.
The Scott's Turf Builder 300 at Bristol Motor Speedway. It's the nationwide series, 2 Eastern on ABC. Then Sunday, get ready for the Sprint Cup race with the pre-race edition of NASCAR Now, 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN2.
Honestly, I'm getting ready to get in the car in about an hour. I have no idea how my car is going to drive, how fast it's going to be. I have no idea whatsoever, and that's a lot different than what we're used to.
Real wild 75-lap race. You got to do what you got to do.
So that is nuts out there. It's frustrating because the gold and blue down there are the cause of another deal. So I'm ticked right now. I'm not happy. I'm not cordial. I'm not nice. I'm not anything right now, and I shouldn't be.
Yeah, and I certainly understand Tony's frustration. He's a car owner now. He had 2 cars involved in the same incident.
Don't get him anywhere near me. Don't bring him anywhere close. Don't let him come close. I don't want anything to do with him.
He ain't too happy about it, but what the hell, man? He was driving like a damn idiot, you know? I mean, that's not clever, smart driving. That's ridiculous.
I think I was doing what I had to do. Yeah, that's super speed racing. You watch your mirror, you try to keep the guy behind you.
Oh my goodness, it's gonna be really wet out here. You're crying like a baby, but man, I don't know. Winning the Daytona 500 is definitely a G moment. It's just an unbelievable feeling. I'm just wondering when I'm going to wake up.
Last week was pretty explainable. A different batch of valve springs. I've seen that movie before in my career, but this one is a little bit more puzzling. I can't understand, what happened. This stuff's usually bulletproof.
Here, 5-4 right here. Whoa, 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 whoa. Go, keep going. Just keep going.
We're racing on pit road just as hard or harder than we're racing on the racetrack. So we're trying to get that last millisecond of speed.
He kind of ruined the whole race. We went from having a lot of cars on one lap, what I felt anyways, to no cars on one lap.
Sweep.
It's awesome to be able to win 2 races in one day. It's something special, and not a lot of times does it happen, obviously, this being the first time.
Good job, buddy. Hometown win.
I mean, this is pretty darn special, that's for sure.
It's going to be a party tonight, boy.
That's neat. I mean, I got to hold my end of the bargain because Kyle's on the gas right now, but I know they're celebrating at PT's Pub out in Vegas. Thank you so much.
Time now for a little word association, NASCAR style. And just so you guys know, these guys have no idea what I'm about to ask them.
The
In
envelope,
honor
please.
of what we just saw, Kyle or Kurt?
Kurt. This is his season. Kyle Busch will get his wins, but this is Kurt Busch's season of the Busch boys.
Kurt this weekend for sure, and probably Kurt this season. But Kyle in the chase.
I would have to tend to agree. It's going to be Kurt this weekend, and Kyle will be a factor still, though, for the chase and for the championship.
Because you like to cheat.
No,
Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. I will borrow a word that one of my colleagues used and say, underachieving. First 4 races into the.
I believe that was my word, maybe.
From Angelique.
Oh,
yes.
Angelique. Okay. Actually, I mean, very good word, by the way. First 4 races into the year, hasn't shown what he's all about or what his fans expect him to be.
Moving on, Casey Mears, since he stole your words. Casey Mears.
Overdue. And I say that meaning that this is the second straight time he's aligned himself with a powerhouse team. He was with Hendrick for 2 seasons, didn't get the job done as much, won a race, but didn't make the chase. Now he's with Childress. There's no more excuses. He's got to win. He's got to make the chase.
I think I'll steal one of my colleagues' words and say over his head. I don't know where I got that one.
Where did you get that?
I have no idea.
I have no idea.
Jeff Gordon and 5 championships.
I think a very legitimate possibility this year. Again, Nicole, I keep saying next season. I'm not sure why. I think next season is the year he gets his 5th. This season he comes close.
I think it's doable this year. I think it's doable. He can get 5 this year. He's the way he's started off the season. Strong team. He's got great equipment. He always has, and he knows what to do with it.
Last one. Final 4.
I don't watch college basketball anymore.
Just a word.
I used to have a word association.
I stumped him.
I don't. Yeah.
I have Michigan State. Pitt, Oklahoma, and I can't remember.
Connecticut.
Memphis.
You're in Connecticut. How could
Memphis.
you? Connecticut. You're in Connecticut.
We're going to have to walk her to her car.
Okay, yeah,
after
really.
this.
I mean, get her a flak jacket, guys, because she's not getting out of the building alive. Connecticut, Louisville, Pittsburgh, and North Carolina. Aren't they the #1 seeds?
Northwestern's not in the tournament this year.
I should have
made me
picked
laugh,
Texas.
Nate.
I thought they might. I heard they were good.
Close.
Just be quiet. Up next, what do you have to say about Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s chances of him making the chase? The numbers don't lie, and we finally get to answer Michael's question. Does Junior Nation still support him? It's coming up next.
NASCAR Now, brought to you by Viagra and Nationwide Insurance, official auto insurance partner of NASCAR.
Hey, remember, we still need your input. NASCAR Now Nation, log on to ESPN.com, enter keywords NASCAR Now Nation, and give us your thoughts and questions on all things NASCAR. And if we use any of your thoughts or comments, you just might see yourself on TV. That is on ESPN.com. Also on ESPN.com, we asked, which of these drivers currently outside the top 12 is most likely to make the chase? Surprise, a surprise. More than 40% of you, almost 50%, say it is in fact Dale Earnhardt Jr. Michael Vega,
That looks like that looked like Obama numbers there. You know?
were pretty hard on Dale Earnhardt Jr. earlier. Are you surprised by those poll results?
No, because I think it's Junior Nation now poll. That's what it is. You know, I mean, look at all the people who are going to call in and vote for him. Honestly, I think that he's got a long ways to go to get into the chase right now.
Before we continue this junior talk, let's look ahead to Bristol this weekend. What do you think we're going to see?
I am going to be looking for the top 35, that bubble. That's really what I'm going to be focused on. I think we know who the top 12 guys are and how things are going to finish. I'm looking at Ryan Newman. I'm looking at Mark Martin. I'm looking at Joey Logano this weekend.
At the end of the day, Sunday, is Mark Martin in the top 35, Nate, or is he out the top 35?
I think Mark Martin finishes in the top 5 on Sunday and propels himself back into the top 30 status and is never in danger again this season. And as far as Sunday's victory goes, I think you're going to see Denny Ham on the victory lane. The Gibbs cars have kind of thrown this race away the last 2 years, and I don't think it's going to happen again.
I thought you just said Kurt Busch.
I did, didn't I?
You did.
I said one to watch.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and say it. I'll go ahead and say it. Kurt Busch will win the race.
I thought you'd endear yourself to the Junior Nation and pick Junior this weekend.
Oh, well, Junior Nation second. He'll come in runner-up, you know. But I think that Kurt Busch is going to have, he's got incredible momentum coming off Atlanta.
Michael Vega from the Boston Globe, Nate Ryan from USA Today, and of course our NASCAR Now reporter, Angelique Shingalis. Thank you to all of you for being here. Thanks for you for watching. NASCAR Now is back Tuesday at 5. Jeff Burton will be in show to talk about his Emmy-worthy performance on General Hospital. And I'm not sure what to expect from these two, but Ray Evernham and Rusty Wallace together as they get ready for this Saturday's big race in Bristol. Have a great night. We will see you Tuesday.